Remember growing up making the perfect mixtape was an art? It would take hours or even days to get the mood just right. It's an art that's nearly been lost in today's drag and drop digital playlist world.
We're four friends of 35 years with many, many mixtapes between us. Join us each episode as we pick a theme, discuss the songs, and build an infinite mixtape. Welcome to the Mixtape Diaries.
That was so rude. Brad started the recording off with just the rudest gesture.
Yeah.
You guys are lucky that there's no video for this podcast.
Seriously, what was up with that? You finally get together and you give us the bird at the beginning of this shot.
My gosh, just right off the bat. He's trying to count us down. 3, 2, 1, and 3, 2, middle finger.
Carl, how are we doing on getting this thing shifted to video? I got a new t-shirt and everything. I think Mark does too.
Yeah, my new order t-shirt on.
I don't know if anybody's ready for a video version of this podcast.
Never say never.
I mean, it's going to add a whole component of hair and makeup that's going to have to start before the show, right?
All right.
So,
I don't know what kind of budget we have to cover wardrobe and things like that.
This is where we started Patreon.
at least I could put a filter on or something, right? I'll put the Max Headroom filter on, so I just look robotic. That's twice. That's 2 times in 10 minutes I've had a Max Headroom reference.
Yeah. And also 2 times in the last 20 years I've had a Max Headroom reference.
Right.
Hey, I just want my MTV, man.
Hey, we're going to talk a little bit about MTV today, I think.
Huh?
Probably.
Oh, yeah. We'll see.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Mixtape Diaries. Brad, do you want to get our business out of the way here?
Well, so I thought we should state our names and our business. Right?
Oh.
So here today with you are Brad. I'm Brad. Who's next?
What's your business?
To make you say your names. So get on with it.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, so that's Brad. I'm Bob, and I have no business even being here. So I guess that's my business.
Next.
I'm Carla, and I don't know what my business is.
Okay. Brad threw us off here with our business.
I know.
Well,
And last but not least,
I'm Mark, and that's my business, just like number 2.
This whole thing's a dirty business.
wow, that is a dirty business. Yeah.
What is it that you do, Mr. Number 2? That's my business.
Mark is breaking out all of the old school references today. I like it.
Well, it's raining in California. We're floating away. We're building arcs.
It's funny because I was like ruminating on whether to actually bring up the weather because I feel like we always default to it. But like this is one chance where we could be like, hey, Mark, how's your shit show weather?
It's pretty shitty out.
Well, now you know what it's like living in Tennessee because that is basically how it rains here normally. So,
Yeah, right. So we're recording this in the second week of January 2023.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, happy New Year.
I think we're all stuck, though, in that time of winter where, this is the hard part to get through.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, like you can see that the good weather's right around the corner, but it's just gray. And even Mark, who normally has pretty good weather, I feel like in January right now is living through this crazy deluge that they've got going on.
But if you're like us, good music and good friends can get you through anything. So
That's true.
hopefully this will help get you through the next 8 to 10 weeks of garbage.
8 to 10 weeks, is that how long we're going to go between recording?
No, it's how long we're going to have winter. But yeah, fair enough. Right. Yeah. That's the point you're making.
Now I get what you're saying.
Let's just do the announcements. Let's move
Should we get this show on the road? This is spiraling quickly.
No.
The outlets that carry this podcast are many and various: Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, etc. We don't especially care which one you use, so long as you go there and mash the subscribe button, give us a 5-star rating. If you got a minute, you're feeling inspired, write us a review. If you want to engage with us directly, reach out to us on Twitter. We're at MT Diaries, and if you write us, we'll probably write you back. That proposition has really never been tested. But if you're interested to see what happens, we are too. The format here is pretty straightforward. We pick songs, we talk about them, then we add the songs we've picked into our Mixtape Diaries playlist, which you can find on the Apple Music and Spotify streaming services. All you got to do is go to either of those platforms and search for the Mixtape Diaries.
Sounds good. Nice job.
Awkward silence.
So I will say that since the calendar turned, I've made a resolution to spend more time with the playlist. It's not like a steady relationship. I still dig the krautrock, the tropicalia. I'm still playing the records here at the desk. But I've been rocking this on shuffle in the car and in the office, like on the walk in between the two, and it's pretty good. Like even the songs that like I kind of brace myself for, like grab my desk, like, oh my God, it's coming. I'm liking them more and more.
I'm looking here in my music app, and it says we're at 163 songs, 12 hours and 17 minutes. That sounds about right, huh?
It's a good road trip.
So I went running the other day, and that Annie DeFranco song came on, and I kept it going, and I ran, and it actually kind of pumped the legs a little bit. It got me running. I might have been running away from it. I might have been running along with it, but I stuck it out. It's not bad.
Carla's face is grimacing.
As I hit fast forward. Boop.
Oh!
Yeah. Ouch.
All right, so let's stop looking backwards and look forwards. We're going to add 12 songs to the playlist on this theme. We'll see whether they all fit in one episode or not. We have tended to run long, and we're thinking about a format change where we do a part 1 and a part 2 just to make these more bite-sized, give you guys more regular love in your podcast feed.
We probably could start with less senseless dribble at the beginning. That might cut the time down a little bit.
That's the part that our audience loves.
Yeah, it's what endears us to them.
I know. No, it endears me to you.
We need one of those things that CNN has when they do the debates where like the people push their meters up and down based on what they're hearing. Just so we can get, focus group feedback on like what sucks and what doesn't.
I was thinking more like, the music they play you off on at the Golden Globes.
That would be funny too.
Right. Yeah.
So
completely off topic, but really awkward Golden Globes this year. I don't know if you guys watched it, but
no,
it was very rigid and sterile. And
that's what she said.
Okay. All right. What's the theme, Noel?
So our theme for this episode is we're doing all Scottish bands. And this was Brad's theme. The only thing I could think about this whole time was from So I Married an Axe Murderer. That's just been stuck in my head every time we start talking about songs for this. That if it's not Scottish, it's crap. I couldn't.
Was that supposed to be a Scottish accent?
Well,
It wasn't,
I'm
and American. It was crap.
Yeah.
I'm American. What can I say? But I think this will be a little interesting of an episode because I think we've got songs that we all like, and then I think we've got some songs that we'll have to talk about a little bit.
It's funny because I had another idea that I floated to you guys, and they kind of flatlined. Nobody was like, that sucked, but nobody was contributing either. Seemed really interested in it. And so I don't know how I got here. I mean, I guess I've always kind of felt like Scotland has a pretty deep bench, right? We're digging for 12 songs, and I don't know, maybe it's not as deep as we thought. Maybe all these songs are freaking terrific. You will decide. And maybe we'll decide too along the way. Mark, I think you're first, yeah?
Yeah. Well, I guess fitting since I think I'm the only one that's actually pretty high percentage Scot of the four of us.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm predominantly Scottish descent, so I was excited about this theme.
Bagpipes at the wedding, if I remember.
Yeah. Remember that when Saturday Night Live did the "If it's not Scottish, it's crap." All things Scottish. Boutique.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
And
it was the store. Yeah.
Yeah, and the bagpipes would play when you opened and closed the door. So Scottish is crap. I was surprised about how deep Scottish choices were, to be honest. So I actually learned, other than one of my picks, I had no idea the other two are actually Scottish. So I learned something at the age of 48, and I've been listening to these bands for over 30 years. So
it was kind of interesting just doing a simple, you just did a Google search of Scottish bands, and then the list would come up, and you're like, holy smokes, I had no clue.
Yeah, I felt the initial one was like a bunch of bands that, like you said, Brad, maybe the bench is deep, but it's not deep in music I want to listen to. And so it took me like a second peeling of the onion to actually start to get into maybe some artists that I had actually have interest in or even broaden my horizons on,
Right. Yeah.
But sure enough, as a predictable choice, the three bands feel very obvious that I would pick them. And I didn't surprise anybody with anything other than maybe the song selection and not so much the band. So with that, I'll keep us moving. My first pick. Who should I talk about first, y'all?
Yeah, it could be any of the three, quite honestly.
Yeah, any of the three. Okay, well, I think I'm going to start with the Scottish band that was active from 1979 to 1997, known as the Cocteau Twins. What a lovely band this is. One of my faves, and I selected a song off their debut album, believe it or not their most commercially successful album, but their debut album called Garlands, and I selected the song Garlands. If I think back to Cocteau Twins, I'm going to either say Marla Puccetti or Michelle Beta were the two gals that introduced me to this, with probably an assist to Tia Abruzzi. And it was the album Heaven or Las Vegas. And I was like, what the hell is this? And I'm going to read, I normally don't read off the wiki, but I thought this was pretty fitting that this group obviously was active from 79 to 1997, and they were formed out of Scotland originally with just two of the members, Robin Guthrie and Will Heggie, and then they later added Elizabeth Fraser on vocals in 1981. This is the line I wanted to kind of read because it really does, I think, best describe Cocteau Twins' sounds if you're not familiar with them. The group earned critical praise for their ethereal, effects-laden sound and the soprano vocals of Fraser, whose lyrics often eschew any recognizable language. And I always felt like when I first heard Heaven or Las Vegas, and maybe specifically the song Ice Blink Luck on that album, I'm like, what language is this? What are they even saying? Sometimes I thought it might be Icelandic. That's why I was like, oh, Ice Blink Luck for some reason felt Icelandic to me. And I'm like, they're speaking some weird language. So it turns out they were singing in English, or at least Scottish, the whole time. Anyway, Garlands was the song I picked off of this, and I don't know, maybe I'll kind of defer to you all on thoughts on it. I love this song, and probably a big surprise for those of you that know me. I think what really drew me to this song was the bass line. Maybe cues in or foreshadows to a selection we talk about later, but hard to not hear some Cure kind of bass line in that. And I just love that ominous, gothy bass line that is in the song. And that's kind of what really draws me to this song. And ultimately, I really enjoy this debut album. Not super heavy in conversation here, other than if you don't know the Cocteau Twins, go down the rabbit hole. It's really good. I think probably Bluebell Knoll is another classic. Heaven or Las Vegas is an easy entry into it, and obviously they're most commercializable. The last thing I'll leave you all with before you all hop in is, interestingly enough, the Garlands album, this particular song, Garlands, that I selected was actually part of a 4-song recording on the Peel sessions, and then ultimately made it into their LP. So the song was actually released as a kind of a Peel sessions prior to it actually being released in 82.
So they didn't re-record it. They just took those recordings right in.
That's my understanding.
That's cool.
June of 82 is when it was recorded for John Peel.
So you could go into that studio in the BBC, play something, get it recorded, probably paid for, right, by the show. Yeah. So maybe that's what you did. If you didn't want to buy studio time, I know Hatful of Hollow by the Smiths, there's a ton of Peel session stuff in there. And I
love that Peel session.
Yeah, it's fun because they did re-record the stuff and you get to hear the original, how it sounded live on the radio show. That's cool. That's very cool.
So that's my pick. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Obviously all these artists have done a lot of side projects as well. This Mortal Coil project probably being the most notable one. And I love the Tim Buckley cover of Song to the Siren, which really draws out Fraser's vocals, like in the beauty of them, but staying true to the pure theme of Scottish origined artists. I landed on Garlands. What better way is to land on their debut?
So I'll jump in. I only have Heaven or Las Vegas. I love Heaven or Las Vegas. So this sounds a lot different to me. And I was like, this doesn't sound like the Cocteau Twins. And I don't know, maybe this is what more of their catalog sounds like than Heaven or Las Vegas. I don't know. But yeah, I heard The Cure in this, right? This is early enough that I feel like they might have made Dream Pop, right? But they hadn't yet. It had me think about when we saw The Cure and the Cranes opened. I was thinking they sound a lot like the Cranes, which in hindsight makes the Cranes a lot less original, I think, than I thought they were when we saw them. And I was like, wow, mind blown. Here they were 10 years earlier doing this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, depending on which avenue or like who you believe, and even kind of as doing their research, I saw multiple times where people are claiming they kind of pioneered the 80s subgenre dream pop. So, certainly we've had debates on like what the hell is dream pop even mean, and shoegaze, and like feels like everything can fall in that umbrella at some point. But there is definitely a more gothy, ethereal kind of feel to them, or like darker side to them at the beginning, and then it seems like it gets a lot more happy sad as you move along. And I stole that from Sing Street because I just watched it this week. So
she definitely was, I don't want to say modeling herself after Susie, but heavily influenced by Susie and the Banshees. That's what I hear, and I've read that online too. Makes perfect sense.
Well, and especially, you consider that these songs were probably written in the late 70s, which is kind of crazy. And then Heaven or Las Vegas isn't until, 1990?
90, yeah.
So, I mean, there's a huge amount of time there, and that those influences at the time probably would have been like Bauhaus and Joy Division and things like that at the time. So Susie, and so it probably makes sense that some of their influences and contemporaries in 1979 probably would have sounded a little more like that, because I'm the same as Brad. The only one I have is Heaven or Las Vegas, and when this came on, I was like, what? Surely I've got the wrong song playing.
I thought it still sounded like them, though. It was just, I mean, I think we're just used to how polished Heaven or Las Vegas is. So then to hear this it still sounded like them to me, but just a little different. I honestly didn't look at the catalog to see like where it fell, pre or post Heaven or Las Vegas, but that makes sense knowing that it's pre.
I feel like there's bands that I buy an album and I love it and I want to go out and get everything that they've done. And there are other bands where I buy an album and it's so good that I'm like, why would I need to go buy another album by them? And I hate to say it, but like they're kind of in the second category for me. I haven't felt like I needed to go find other stuff. I mean, I think we're probably in agreement here. This isn't the best Cocteau Twins, right? And I'm not faulting you for picking it because I think it's really interesting and cool and I like the song, right? But like, I love Heaven or Las Vegas.
I mean, I really liked this song a lot. It actually makes me want to listen to the rest of this record, which I haven't done yet. But I mean, same. Like, I love Heaven or Las Vegas. Shelly and I listened to it every single night before we went to bed our freshman year of college. That was our fall asleep to it record.
Yeah, I think we all did.
But this is like the Black Diamond Hill, right? This is like more advanced, right? This is the deeper cut. So I think it's cool that you chose it, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think it's always one of the things that's interesting about bands that recorded for a huge amount of time, but then, I think for some of these bands, this is a band that spanned arguably the end of genres and then the beginning of genres, and so you can hear them change and grow as they started in the 70s and then kind of end in the mid 90s, that their sound changed as the times changed. And I think that's kind of interesting.
That's kind of wild too, because we're used to them from the 90s, which is technically the latter part of their career. So like we weren't even thinking about the earlier.
Well, and that's kind of the crazy thing too, is that when I think looking at a number of the bands that we're going to talk about today, a lot of them started way earlier than I thought they had. So.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about one of your other bands, Mark, when you said 79, and then you said Cocteau Twins, and I was like, wait, what? What? Really?
Right.
No, I think that's the thing that surprised me the most because again, Carla, you're spot on. Like, and it's the reason I didn't pick that album or anything off of it. I don't want to say I got bored with that, but God, I listened to it so much, especially during that 1990, 1991 years, because it was literally like that's what we put on to fall asleep to every night in the dorms. Or, like I can think about Brad Carey or myself and Matt Brasia, and it was like, all right, what are we listening to? And it was either like Enya or Cocteau Twins.
We listened to that Enya record too. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's because they were all dream poppy.
Yeah,
dream poppy.
And occasionally we'd mix it up with some Pet Shop Boys. We will never be in boring. Remember the beginning of that song? It was like so chill. But
admit it, Mark, you were trying to get anything to get Brad to sleep peacefully so he wouldn't start talking backwards in the middle of the night and freak you out.
It's just like, can I fall asleep before he starts snoring? Because if I can, then I'll sleep.
That backwards talk, I'm still not past it.
Oh God, I think I had filed that away into the recesses of my brain.
Well, that was a good first one.
Thanks. Yeah, go for it, Brad. No.
I was just going to say, when you mentioned Tia, I remember being in a car with her. My parents were driving. She had headphones on, and she was listening to this album, and she didn't know she was singing, but she was singing. And you can't sing Elizabeth Fraser's vocals, period. And if no one else is hearing the music, it's something else, man. Just let her go. We just laughed for like a good half hour while she did it.
I think Heaven or Las Vegas is the only record she and I listened to, like when we were on that drive to Hilton Head, and you guys were in the other car, but she and I were in a car ourselves.
I can imagine
I think
that.
it was
yeah.
like just on repeat.
Well, and she's always classic for her own little language, like
Yes.
Hootie Scooty and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's like, I think half the lyrics came from probably from Heaven or Las Vegas, and she just repurposed them for different contexts.
That's funny.
I always think about
Anyway.
her when I see the Cocteau Twins, always.
Big
you're
shout out to
listening,
Tia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was the first and a bit of a deep cut for sure, and not trying to be on purposely deep cut, but I thought it would be fun to introduce folks to
Yeah, absolutely.
other Cocteau. And I'd really encourage not only the three of you, but everybody listening to go through the full catalog, because I branched out well beyond Heaven in Las Vegas decades ago and have had all their albums in pretty good rotation over the years. So, but they're different, and it's definitely a little gothier and a little darker in their early, and then a little more dream poppy as it moves on. So
Should we go right to Garlands or Bluebell Knoll, or what would you suggest?
yeah, I would say if you like Heaven or Las Vegas, I would stay closer to the 90s. So Bluebell Knoll would probably be a nice bridge. But I know you guys really like The Cure and some of that good early 80s goth rock as well. So I don't think for you guys, I don't think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a tough thing. It's just going to be like, wow, this is really different than the Cocteau Twins I'm familiar with from 1990. So
yeah.
Let's stay in the 70s, shall we? I can't believe I picked two bands that started in the 70s. This is mind-blowing.
It's shocking.
Carla's head is blowing up right now. But my second band is a band that was formed in Glasgow in 1977, believe it or not, and is still active to this day. And they are a band known as the Simple Minds. I love this band. I don't know that this band gets the respect it deserves, and certainly everybody knows them for the Breakfast Club song, right? Don't You Forget About Me, which would have been the obvious choice, but similar to the Cocteau Twins selection in Heaven in Las Vegas, I've listened to that song so many times, as we all have, because it's on every radio platform possible, whether you play alternative, pop, hip hop. I mean, even hip hop plays that song from time to time, right? So it's hip hop stations. So I went with I wouldn't say lesser known, because this was their second single that followed the Don't You Forget About Me, which is, I selected the song Alive and Kicking from 1985. God, I love this song. And Brad's smiling again, the video. And actually, Brad, you surprised me in your response when I put this in the chat that I was picking the song. And it was about 5 minutes later, because I could tell you listened to the song.
Yeah.
And then you came back and said, God, this song's just fantastic.
Yeah. It's so good. I mean, Bob tried to pick it. It's sort of like fumble. It's like a fumble drill. It was like Scottish theme. And you guys were like, alive and kicking, alive and kicking.
Yeah. That's why I kicked him out
Yeah.
no pun intended, really fast because I knew there's only so many good songs to pick from, and then turned out there was way more than I thought. But yeah, this was their lead single off their 7th album, Once Upon a Time, which was released in 1985. And while it didn't have the same success as the Breakfast Club song, Don't You Forget About Me, the song did reach number 3 on Billboard's Hot 100 in the US and number 4 in Canada. And it did hit number 1 in various countries across Europe. So there's not much else to say about this song other than it's just fantastically brilliant. And I love it dearly. And it's always been in my rotation and always will be.
Don't say goodbye, don't say goodbye. In the final seconds, who's gonna say that? Ooh, oh, I love a kicking. Oh, still till your love is. I love a kicking. Ooh, oh, I love a kicking.
It's a superior song to Don't You Forget About Me.
Yeah.
I'd agree with you.
In so many ways. I mean, they're both great songs, but this one, when you hear it, it's just, yeah, it's like a kick in the pants. You're like, yeah, this song rocks.
I think this is a dude song.
You think it's a dude song, huh? Is that what you said?
Yeah, but I haven't asked any other females how they feel about the song, so that's just my own opinion.
Wow.
I'm like, this just feels, because Don's like, oh, I love this song. I'm like, okay. Like, it's a good song, but I just feel like everybody else is very passionate about this song, and I'm like, meh. It's better than Don't You Forget About Me. I do like it better than that.
Yeah.
I agree on that point, but I'm like, is this just like a dude song? I don't know. I will ask around and we'll report back.
Yeah.
I think that's a good poll question. We'll get back to you on the next podcast we do, our next episode, and we'll report back on this.
I actually meant to text Allie.
About this.
I meant to text Allie.
I think you should live text right now, Carla.
I will actually.
Pick a handful of lady friends, and we'll come back to you
Keep
before
talking.
the end of the episode on this. So talk amongst yourselves. Noel, I love that you bring up that this is a far superior song to Don't You Forget About Me. And it's not to like sell that song short, right?
No.
And I think the reason Don't You Forget About Me is so near and dear to my heart when I think about it is there's a lot of nostalgia in that movie, The Breakfast Club,
Right.
especially for our generation.
Right.
And it was almost like, to me, this may be a controversial statement, but it is a bit of an anthem for our generation. That movie was, and that song
100%.
was the anthem of that movie.
Yeah.
But if you really want to unpack a superiorly written song and mood that comes through it just purely on music, Alive and Kicking just has this emotional depth to it that it's just so good.
The thing I love about the song is just the way it builds up.
Yeah.
I like it. I mean,
It swells. Yeah.
it starts out kind of quiet and slow a little bit, and then it just builds into this song that just, I don't know. Like, if you don't feel the song, then I don't know. You're just not alive and kicking, right?
Yeah.
In music talk, would you say it crescendos?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
it's great. Yeah.
But there's a lot of like feel good 80s music that I got to wall up and it's not going to breach it. It's like, yeah, whatever. I don't know if this like just got in early because it was MTV, early MTV. We were watching it, right? All that stuff landed stuck in a different way. But like it does, it reaches you. It's kind of uplifting. I love the build of it.
Yeah.
No complaints. 10 out of 10.
It was such a good choice that I tried to choose it. So
I'm like a 7 out of 10.
whatever.
7 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I get jaded by songs that were super, like, I just remember this being on the radio, like, all the time. It got so much play on MTV, like, that I just
Yeah, but so did
got
Footloose.
tired of
Footloose
it.
was awesome.
That even when I go back to those now, I'm like, I don't know.
It is kind of weird. It's those songs that are the early MTV songs. These were those first, like, people finally figured out what a music video was, and then made these huge videos. And we'll touch on this in a little bit when we get to my songs, because there was a difference between those very first songs that were on MTV, and then there was this second batch of songs that came out where everybody was like, oh gosh, MTV's a real thing now, so we have to make music videos. And they made these huge videos.
Yeah.
And then, just like commercial radio at the time, they just got played over and over and over and over again.
Fair enough. But I still love this song.
No, it's a great song. So what's your third one, Mark?
Well, my third one, last but certainly not least, is a wonderful band that was formed in 1983, went to 99, took a small break, and came back to us in 2007 and is still active. The pride of East Kilbride, Scotland, the Jesus and Mary Chain.
Which I never knew was Scottish.
Me
Same.
either.
Yeah, this was a big eye-opener. Aha. Liz and I were kind of talking about this yesterday. I think similar to how Canada gets lumped into America. You know, everybody hears
Probably.
America and they say it's, you know, they think about the U.S., but believe it or not, North America is made up of two countries, not just the U.S. I think the U.K. often gets lumped up into, oh, it's England. And even more specifically, it's like London or Manchester centric, especially when it comes to music in a lot of ways, other than maybe like Beatles and like Liverpool, right? So I had no idea that Jesus and Mary Chain was Scottish. Scottish pride flying high right now because I was pretty stoked on this. And again, you all know this, but the listeners don't. Listeners, my original choice here was Just Like Honey, and I did go to the predictable selection, but Brad kindly reminded me that we had already selected it as part of our, I think I actually selected it too as part of our soundtrack
No, I did it. It was
theme. It was
movies. Yeah.
movies theme. Yeah, part of our movies theme. I'm glad it actually was selected because that was the easy choice, right? Because it just pops up, and
Yeah.
I do love that song. However, it's not the song that I first heard by the Jesus and Mary Chain, and it wasn't my introduction to them as a band. So that's why I landed on the song Head On, which was my introduction to this band. It was the first song I'd ever heard from them, and I discovered it because it was part of a compilation of various artists that was released back in the day called Nevermind the Mainstream, which was the best of MTV's 120 Minutes Volume 2.
Awesome.
And now, if you don't have this CD, you should definitely purchase it because it is a fantastic playlist. Maybe we'll just recreate it in the new world. On track 7, Head On appears, and this 4 minutes and 9 seconds of joy. I was like, what is this? How come I've never heard of this band? And certainly I kind of went down the rabbit's hole from there. But this song was released in 1989 on their album Automatic. Certainly not their first album.
Third,
To me,
I
one
think,
of the
yeah.
most fun. Yeah, I think is their third album, and to me, my favorite album of the bunch. Although Psycho Candy, which was their debut, it's definitely a fantastic album as well. But I later discovered it after Automatic. So my introduction to Jesus and Mary Chain was Automatic, and was this song. I don't know. I'd love to hear what you guys think about the Jesus and Mary Chain, and like I'll add some more, but maybe I'll just pause here for a second so you all can chime in.
I'm going to agree with you and say this is my favorite album of theirs too. And I know you're not supposed to because I think Psycho Candy's the one that has the 5 stars everywhere. But it's the exact same thing. We probably found it at the same time. This was the first one we heard. It was awesome. This is what we thought it should sound like. I don't have a bad word to say about it.
Yeah, I feel the same. This is a great record.
I hadn't heard this song in a million years. So it was good to come back to it. Like, as soon as he sent your selections, I was like, oh man, that's such an awesome song. So it was good to kind of come back to it.
So I remember some point we had a substitute in Latin class in high school. And do you remember Mr. Fillmore's daughter was like subbing in our school? So the principal's daughter was the substitute teacher, and she like did anything she wanted. And if I remember right, she wrote us a hall pass to go to the mall. And on the strength of that wholly unenforceable document, I remember riding down 46 in Natalie Siegel's Chrysler LeBaron in the middle of the school day listening to this song. That's what I remember. That's what I remember of Head On. I'm not sure if Nat's still a regular MTD listener, could confirm this or not, but that's how I remember it anyway.
I do believe she's still a listener, so shout out Nat.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, this band's great. I think it's, their early influences, including like Velvet Underground and the Stooges and Shangri-Las, like it's interesting, like range of influence in there. And I don't know, I guess I hear some of that in there, but when I think about just like Honey down the road, like I don't hear any of that in there, and it just feels like good classic alternative rock with those shoegazing undertones for sure.
Right.
Lots of chorus, flanger, and delay in the guitars, right? So.
Bobby Gillespie was the drummer in this band, at least for Psycho Candy. You see him in the video, and you're like, oh my God, there he is. Like in the background, right?
Yeah.
I've seen him a few times. I don't know if they're twins, but they're two brothers, right? The Reed brothers.
Two brothers, yeah. Jim and William Reed are the brothers that, yeah.
And one of them presents as like really clean cut and usually has a collared shirt on and like close cropped hair. And the other guy's just like, wild hair everywhere, like beard. It's just kind of funny. They seem kind of like the Odd Couple. I always wonder how that went for them.
And for those of you who don't know, Bobby Gillespie went on to be the lead singer and founding member of Primal Scream, which was on our short list for this episode. Oh, by the way.
Yeah, I thought somebody had picked them.
Yeah.
I left it out there for
It
somebody.
was a real missed opportunity for me.
Because we want to get
they
loaded.
were already picked.
We want to have a good time. So let's do it.
Yeah. There's still time, Carla. There's still time.
Yeah, you could switch up. So, well, in the spirit of time, those are my 3 selections. Thank you for listening. Appreciate y'all. And I will pass the torch to Carla. Are you next?
It's Bob, I
me
think.
next.
Pass the duchy on the left-hand side.
That'll be a song for another
Another theme.
Favorite gotcha
another
songs.
theme.
Yeah.
My 3 songs. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about all 3 of them.
Is that because you didn't prepare?
No. It's because 2 of them, I think once I reveal those choices, they'll be pretty obvious why I picked them. But the first one is kind of a goofy one. So my first song is In a Big Country by the band Big Country off the album Big Country. So a lot of originality there from the band Big Country. But when I saw this on a list, I was like, why didn't this just pop into my head like immediately? So the biggest reason why I added it is just because of the nostalgia of the song. This is one of those songs that was an early MTV video. So one of the things I did was to go back and watch the video. The video is completely ridiculous. You can tell that it's at the dawn of music videos because you can tell that they were out with like a camcorder shooting this. There was hardly any, like they had a basic script for what their little video was going to be, but it's so ridiculous and so almost awful in its composition that it's hilarious to go back and watch it and realize that this was at the dawn of MTV and that bands were like, oh, hey, we've got to make a music video. It's kind of a fun song, and it's one of those songs that I know is totally stuck in my head from hearing it probably a million times while it was on MTV when MTV first debuted. So that's my first one. Not a lot to say other than one of the things that's kind of interesting is that the original bass player that they wanted for the band was Derek Forbes, who's the bass player for Simple Minds. So it's kind of interesting whenever we get into one of these themes, especially things that either we're talking about bands that are at the same time, or it's interesting how much crossover there can be between these bands. So, you have these bands that were probably all starting in the early 80s, just generally. of course they would all know each other because they were all probably playing shows together and crossing paths a lot. So it's kind of interesting that here the original bass player that they wanted for their band ended up being in Simple Minds. And then as the band has gone through multiple iterations over the years, Derek Forbes is currently was the last bass player for Big Country. So there's kind of that weird crossover there.
Question.
Uh-huh.
Do any of you know any other songs by Big Country?
Yes. So
Sure
and
don't.
so that was once I saw this on the list, I went back and so I listened to this song, and then I quickly jumped through this album and was like, yeah, okay. So I could see why they struggled commercially. It is kind of interesting, too, that one of the things about this song that I had always assumed, but then doing some research, I found out they use an effect on a guitar to make it sound like bagpipes. And I always had assumed that it probably really was bagpipes in the background, but it's actually guitar, and that it was one of their signature sounds for the band was that they used this guitar with lots of effects on it to actually make it sound like bagpipes, which is kind of
You
interesting.
preempted my notes, Bob, because I had a note here. It's like, I don't know if those are guitars, but they sound like bagpipes, and they always did.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it's easy to be like, oh, they must be Scottish. Their guitars are like bagpipes.
Right.
I'm not expecting to grow flowers in the desert, but I can live and breathe and see the sun in winter time. In a big country, dreams stay with you like a lover's voice past the mountainside. Stay alive. In a big country, dreams stay with you like a lover's voice past the mountainside. Stay.
So I just went to Wikipedia and looked to see like who these people were, right? And so I had these like old punk rock sampler albums that I got in England that had like 50 different bands on them, and they all had maybe one song. And they had people, I don't know if this matters to anybody, but you know that song "The Saints Are Coming" that I think Green Day covered after the whole thing with the hurricane in New Orleans? So that was originally written and recorded by the Skids, an old Scottish punk band, and one of their members came to Big Country. Another band, Spiz Energy, which did the song "Where's Captain Kirk," which I don't know if any of you guys have heard that, but it's on all the punk rock samplers. So there were punk bands, and I guess they broke up because punk was over, and this was the next thing.
Yeah.
The drummer played in the Cult, Ultravox. To
There you
your
go.
point,
Yeah.
he did some work with Rick Astley. It's a weird band. It's the only song I know.
Yeah.
But then when you look at the members and you know who they've worked with, the bass players worked with the Pretenders, Pete Townsend. You know, like it's kind of wild. Like worked with some like legit other artists. So that's the only song I know.
Yeah, Kate Bush doing backing vocals for them. Yeah, weird, right?
On the subject of the bagpipes, the only tidbit, although like when we get into these conversations and we start to flow, but I pulled out one quote from the Smashing Pumpkins' James Iha on this particular song, and in general, speaking about it, he said, "I love this song. I used to watch the video when it was on MTV, when MTV played videos. The music is super anthemic. The guitars are awesome and bagpipe-like, and somehow incorporating the band's name, that they're a Big Country, and then dreams stay with you like a lover's voice. It sounds like Braveheart or something." That's what I don't, and I kind of feel like that summarizes everything we just talked about, but much more eloquently. Although I think I read it very eloquently, but anyway.
That's
Yeah,
great.
it's just one of those crazy songs. It gets stuck in your head. And then when I saw it on the list, I was like, oh, and I played probably like 3 seconds of it and was like, yeah, okay, this is a good one. So my second song, and this was a surprise one for me a little bit, is Take Me Out by Franz Ferdinand. that's a band that I hadn't realized was Scottish. So I think this touches back on Scotland being part of the United Kingdom. You just start to make these assumptions, and then you start to dig in a little deeper, and then you realize that, oh, okay, there are some different parts of the UK than just England. Take Me Out, I think, is probably their biggest single ever. It won a bunch of awards. I think it was nominated for a Grammy if it didn't win. It's just one of those songs that when you hear the band Franz Ferdinand, it's going to be the song that pops into your head. I think, to me, everything off of this album, Franz Ferdinand, this whole album is so good. And then
It's unbelievable.
yeah. And then one of the things that I think is kind of interesting, though, is that they're a band that's recorded a lot of other things. And this kind of harkens back to our Cocteau twins conversation, that this album is so good that you're kind of happy with it. You're like, yeah, this is it. Because when you hear things off of other albums, and they just released like a best of album that had a couple new songs on it.
Yeah, they toured
Just-
on it. They came through Boston.
Nothing. I feel like nothing stands up as well as this whole album, Franz Ferdinand. So that was my selection off of this one, was Take Me Out.
So I have all those other albums just because every time they come through, I want to see them. And so if they're going to play all the new stuff, you want to have it. And, I think you're right. Like, the first one is the best. But I don't know. I love their stuff all the way through. This one, though, this song on this album, like, man, it's awesome.
It's a great song.
Yeah, and I love the way this song builds up too. It's I love the tempo change in it, and everything about it is kind of unique and has kind of a different feel from, I think, a lot of other songs. So I think that's the thing that makes it stick in my head.
When they play it live, right, and they start really fast and they slow it down and they grind it down, and then it snaps into that groove. Everybody starts pogoing, like, up and down, and the whole crowd, and he's doing it. It's so much fun.
They're a fun live act. They're fun to see. We saw them at Lollapalooza a million years ago, and I swear they only played this record because I knew every single song, and I only have this one. So
He's a real entertainer too.
Yeah, they're fun.
He's funny. Yeah.
I don't own any of their stuff.
What?
I don't really listen to them.
really,
And-
This is such a good album.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
shocking to me.
It's bizarre because every time I hear this particular song and some others, I always love it, but then I never come back to it. So there's this strange thing where I'm like, I have no disagreement with anything you're all saying, but at the same time, I never find myself drawn to, like, just putting this on myself. I've never once taken a Franz Ferdinand song and, like, played it, like,
Of your own volition.
of my own volition. Thank you for finishing. It's exactly.
I'm so
It's always
surprised
come
by
on
that.
in a play. Yeah, I know, right? Shocking. It's always come on a playlist or kind of randomly in somebody else's shuffle. I've never once done it, and I can't put my finger on why that is.
You were
'Cause I
talking.
don't dislike them.
You were talking about top 5 albums, like top 5 desert albums on our text thread, and I didn't think of this at the time, but Bob, when you started talking, I was like, yeah, this might be a top 5 album for me. Like, it's top to bottom. It's
Yeah, like
perfect.
every song is great.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, you'll definitely have to go back and listen to it, Mark, because it's good. I only have a handful of albums that I feel like I really like to listen to front to back. This is one of them. That you just start at the beginning and you want to listen to it all the way through. That you can definitely pick out singles from the album, but it's such a good album that it's fun to listen to start to finish.
I'm about to fly out there, make you listen to it.
Easy.
We got the long weekend. I got
We started
time. You
Amazon
got time.
priming him all the Franz Ferdinand catalog.
I wasn't
Jesus.
disagreeing. I didn't say they suck. I just was kind of. I thought we were in the nest
no,
here.
right.
I thought I could
Yeah.
share.
No. I think we're just all surprised that
Yeah.
you don't own it or haven't really listened to it.
Well, so here's something for you to listen to this weekend. So my third song, as soon as we touched on doing Scottish bands, I had to do this one. My third song is from Texas, and it's the song Say What You Want.
And when I get that feeling, I can no longer hide. Full can tell me your reasons, but it won't change my feelings. I feel the same about you. What I am is what you wanna be. Yeah, now that I'm not there, I took the tables away from you.
And we've done in a previous episode, was it solo acts or
I think so.
something?
Female solo.
Female,
artists.
so, yeah.
Was that what it was? So at that time, I'd done a Charlene Spiteri song, so it was super easy to choose Texas for this episode. I said it in that episode. I'll say it again here. I love everything about her. Her voice is amazing. The videos for these songs are all crazy and kind of fun, but good grief, it's her voice. There's no way I can get around that. Her voice is just amazing to me. This is probably, it's off their most commercial album, White on Blonde. It was the biggest single off of that album. It's always kind of considered their top song. I think a lot of their albums are great, but this album is probably their best. What was the song that you had said, Brad, that you wanted me to pick instead of this one?
Breathless. Breathless is the one that
Yeah.
I love.
So this whole album is good. I mean, kind of like the Franz Ferdinand album. I love this album front to back. It's always a good listen. Even if you haven't heard it in a long time, you go back and you're like, yeah, okay, I remember every second of this album. So yeah, there's my my third selection, Say What You Want from Texas.
I never thought we'd have a playlist with 2 Texas songs in it because
Yeah.
I'd never heard of them before we
Me
started
either.
doing this podcast together. But I have no complaints. It's great to listen to. I love how the songs flow into the playlist, so this will be really good. Nothing other than to say, when I was reminding myself about Texas, I read that their performing debut was in 1988 at the University of Dundee, and I can now say that I've been to the University of Dundee because I was recently there on a work trip. So it's kind of cool to know where they debuted. And as it turns out, Dundee is this coastal town in Scotland outside Edinburgh. And it is kind of a little art mecca with the school there. And it's become kind of like a really cool community for art and music. So kind of neat to see that as early as 1988, that was going on in this area.
I had like a weird thing with the song where when she sings the line and when I get that feeling, like my brain literally went to sexual healing and like I can't unhear it. So like every time I was listening to this, I was like, oh, it's not going to that other song. I like wanted to like mash them up.
I think, did I tell the story before about how I saw Texas open for James at Six Flags in New Jersey? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll only say that. I managed to see them and, of course, crushed on the singer at the time, as I did for every British singer in the 1990s.
Let's go back and listen to our female solo artist episode for that
Yeah,
story.
there you go.
I reserve my right to come back with Breathless at some later date because just it's in a lot of playlists that I make because it's so good. And this song's great too.
Yeah. No, it's one of those bands that I don't know, at least in the States, probably just never got a lot of airplay and not a lot of notoriety. But I think they're an amazing band. So those are my 3: Big Country, Franz Ferdinand, and Texas.
Pretty good range there, Noel. Nice.
It's all part of being in a big country. You got to go back and watch that video. It's so terrible. It's so
You're right,
terrible.
but I never thought about it. That right, there were the bad videos. They were just like, we need to have a video, and then there was like, people were like, hey, these could be little films. These can be works of art.
Right.
And this was in the before that.
Yeah, this was definitely one of those very first. Like you could tell they shot it like in a day, and then probably edited it in a day, and then they were like, "Oh, hey, we can send this over to MTV, and they'll put it on." And then they played the living daylights out of it.
It was the single most consequential thing that happened in their career, for better or for worse. It was that one song being on MTV.
It was one day they got to ride 3-wheelers around the Scottish countryside and shoot video of it.
Because we talk so much, we're going to go to our sponsors and come back to you with part 2.
This episode brought to you by Casper Mattresses.
Do you wake up tired, not feeling rested? Well, boy, do I have a solution for you. Casper Mattresses. Brought to you by...
Isn't every podcast sponsored by Casper?
Yeah.
Mark, does Patagonia want to be a sponsor of this podcast?
Life on the go? Want some stretchy pants? Try Viore.
Are you looking for hot peppers and oil?
Yeah. Now that's a sponsor. I would take that sponsor.
Yeah.
I would pay for that sponsor.
Yeah, well, they
Are
give
you
us a coupon code.
constipated? Try Metamucil.
I don't think I've ever heard Metamucil as a sponsor of a podcast.
And now,
Anything to help the flow here.
Oh.
but Flomax.